The GPS whirred a nonsensical string of directions, the flickering blue dot on the map leading Ben deeper into a labyrinth of deserted backroads. He squinted through the rain-streaked windshield, the headlights cutting through the oppressive darkness. Whispering Pines Trailer Park, it announced with robotic cheer, completely at odds with the unsettling silence pressing down on him. Ben wasn't a rookie delivery driver, but this order felt different. The address was cryptic, the name on the package an unsettling Mr. Crowley, and the exorbitant tip, enough for a week's worth of gas, had pushed him to ignore his gut feeling. Finally, the GPS sputtered to a halt. Bleak shadows of rusted trailers stretched before him, shrouded in a thick fog that seemed to writhe and twist in the headlights' glare. A single trailer, at the far end of the park, stood illuminated by a single, flickering porch light. Ben shivered, the hairs on his arms standing on end. He climbed out of the van, the damp air heavy with the scent of mildew and decay. He approached the trailer, each step echoing on the rotten wooden planks of the rickety porch. He knocked tentatively. The silence stretched, broken only by the mournful wail of the wind through the skeletal trees. He raised his fist for another knock, but the door creaked open before his knuckles could connect with the chipped wood. A figure stood silhouetted in the doorway, shrouded in shadow. "Mr. Crowley," Ben managed, his voice barely a whisper. A raspy voice chuckled, a sound like dry leaves rustling. "Indeed. Come in, my dear delivery boy. Your package awaits." Ben hesitated, a wave of primal fear washing over him. He should turn and run, flee into the night. But the promise of the hefty tip, the financial security it would offer, held him rooted to the spot. With a deep breath, he stepped inside. The trailer was dimly lit by a single flickering bulb, casting grotesque shadows that danced on the peeling wallpaper. A lone table stood in the center, upon which a large, ornately wrapped box lay. "There it is," Mr. Crowley rasped, gesturing towards the box. "My most prized possession. Handle it with care." Ben cautiously approached the table. The box was cold, emitting an otherworldly chill. He knelt down, his fingers trembling as he began to unwrap it. Beneath the layers of faded paper lay a tarnished silver amulet, shaped like a crow with outstretched wings. Its eyes, made of obsidian, seemed to glow with an unnatural light, burning into Ben's soul. A primal sense of dread filled him, an overwhelming urge to flee. As his hand touched the amulet, a wave of icy energy surged through him. Images flooded his mind, a tapestry of unspeakable horrors whispered in an ancient tongue. He screamed, a raw, primal sound that echoed through the desolate trailer park. Mr. Crowley chuckled, the sound devoid of any humor. "Finally awake, are we? Welcome to the bargain, my dear boy. Your sacrifice will fuel the return." Ben scrambled back, his vision blurring. The room seemed to distort, the trailer walls dissolving into an abyss of swirling darkness. The last thing he saw was the crow amulet, pulsating with a malevolent light, before darkness claimed him whole. The next morning, the police found Ben's abandoned delivery van on the outskirts of Whispering Pines Trailer Park. The trailer itself was gone, vanished without a trace. The only evidence of Ben's existence was the single, cryptic message scrawled on the rain-streaked windshield. "The crows have a new messenger." The hefty tip remained untouched in Ben's bank account, a chilling reminder of the night he stumbled upon a darkness beyond human comprehension, a reminder that some deliveries come with a price too terrible to pay. The neon glow of the Last Bite pizza sign cast an unsettling red hue on Sarah's face as she checked the address scrawled on the greasy receipt. "Wisteria Lane," it read, followed by a cryptic note. Deliver to back door. Beware of dog. Wisteria Lane, according to the GPS, was a dead end nestled deep in the suburbs, a maze of identical darkened houses. Sarah, a seasoned delivery driver with a healthy dose of skepticism, parked her beat-up Honda Civic a safe distance from the address. The silence was heavy, broken only by the rhythmic chirping of crickets. Clutching the piping hot pizza, Sarah navigated the overgrown path leading to the back door. A rusted chain-link fence with a bone-shaped "Beware of dog" sign creaked ominously in the breeze. Just as she reached the back door, a low growl rumbled from within the house. Sarah's heart hammered in her chest. Dogs weren't usually her problem, but the menacing growl sent shivers down her spine. She knocked tentatively, the sound swallowed by the oppressive silence. She knocked again, louder this time, her voice trembling slightly as she called out, "Delivery from Mr. Blackwood." No answer. Just a low growl, now joined by the frantic scratching of claws against wood. Hesitantly, Sarah placed the pizza box on the rickety wooden steps and turned to leave. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream pierced the night. Sarah froze, her blood turning to ice. The scratching intensified, a desperate clawing that sent chills down her spine. Without a second thought, Sarah bolted towards her car, the horrifying scream echoing in her ears. She fumbled with the keys, her hands shaking uncontrollably. Just as she slammed the car door shut, a hulking figure lunged at the fence, its guttural growls morphing into inhuman shrieks. Adrenaline surged through Sarah. She slammed the car into reverse, tires screeching on the gravel driveway as she sped away, not daring to look back. The horrific image of the monstrous figure clawing at the fence was burned into her memory. Back at the pizza parlor, Sarah, shaken but unharmed, recounted the night's events to her skeptical manager, Tony. He scoffed, dismissing it as a case of overactive imagination and a stray dog with a bad case of indigestion. Furious and shaken, Sarah stormed out, vowing never to deliver to Wisteria Lane again. But the incident gnawed at her. The scream, the monstrous figure, it was all too real. The next day, curiosity gnawed at Sarah. She couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible had happened at the house on Wisteria Lane. Ignoring Tony's warnings, she drove back, a gnawing dread growing in her stomach. The house looked the same, shrouded in an unsettling silence. The pizza box remained untouched on the steps, a stark reminder of the previous night's terror. Sarah approached cautiously, her hand hovering over her phone, ready to call the police. As she neared the back door, a foul stench hit her, a sickening mix of decay and something else she couldn't place. She gagged, stepping back in disgust. Suddenly, the door creaked open a sliver, revealing a glimpse of darkness within. A cold gust of wind swept past Sarah, carrying with it a whispered plea, a voice that sent shivers down her spine. "Help me!" Terror seized Sarah. This wasn't a dog. This was something far worse. She turned and ran, not daring to look back, the chilling whisper echoing in her ears. Sarah never delivered another pizza again. The memory of Wisteria Lane haunted her, a chilling reminder of the night she encountered something lurking in the darkness, a monstrous secret hidden behind a seemingly ordinary suburban house. The unanswered call for help became her burden, a constant reminder of the horror that awaited those who dared to venture too close. The neon glow of the city glowed into the inky blackness of the outskirts, casting long, distorted shadows on the deserted highway. Rain lashed against Raina's windshield, blurring the world outside her beat-up delivery van. A shiver ran down her spine as the GPS announced, "Destination, Willow Creek, ETA 10 minutes." Willow Creek wasn't on any map Raina knew of. In fact, the address on the delivery order was more of a cryptic clue. Follow the abandoned gas station, turn left at the flickering neon sign, drive until the road disappears. The hefty tip attached to the order, however, had been enough to overcome her initial hesitation. Following the cryptic instructions, Raina found herself on a desolate stretch of road, swallowed by the encroaching darkness. The skeletal remains of an abandoned gas station stood sentinel, its rusted pumps like skeletal fingers reaching for the sky. Taking a deep breath, she turned left at the flickering neon sign of a long-closed motel, its vacancy sign a beacon of emptiness. The road narrowed, transforming into a barely there path, swallowed by the encroaching forest. Her headlights speared through the darkness, revealing gnarled branches that clawed at the van like skeletal fingers. The air grew thick and oppressive, the silence broken only by the rhythmic drumming of the rain on the roof. Suddenly, the GPS sputtered and died, plunging the van into an unsettling darkness. Panic surged through Raina. She fumbled for her phone, its weak flashlight a feeble attempt to pierce the oppressive gloom. The delivery instructions mentioned nothing about a dead phone. Just then, a faint light flickered in the distance. Hope flared in Raina's chest. Following the light, she emerged into a clearing dominated by a dilapidated Victorian mansion, its silhouette looming ominously against the storm-racked sky. A single, flickering candle burned in a dusty window, casting an eerie glow on the overgrown path leading to the front door. Raina hesitated, the hairs on her arms standing on end. A primal instinct screamed at her to turn and flee, but the promise of the hefty tip and the thought of being stranded in the middle of nowhere spurred her forward. Reaching the porch, the warped wooden floorboards creaked ominously beneath her steps. She knocked on the weathered oak door, the sound echoing through the silent mansion like a death knell. The door creaked open a sliver, revealing a sliver of darkness within. A figure emerged, shrouded in shadow. Its voice, raspy and ancient, sent shivers down Raina's spine. The delivery, finally. Raina, her voice barely a whisper, stammered, "Yes, sir. 1 large pepperoni pizza with extra cheese." The figure chuckled, a sound like dry leaves rustling in a crypt. "Come in, child. You look famished." Raina hesitated, her gut churning with dread. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but a morbid curiosity, coupled with the fear of appearing rude, pushed her forward. She stepped inside, the darkness swallowing her whole. The air inside the mansion was thick with the smell of dust and decay. A single flickering candle cast grotesque shadows that danced on the peeling wallpaper. The figure led her through a labyrinth of darkened rooms, each colder and more oppressive than the last. Finally, they reached a grand hall, its faded grandeur a stark contrast to its current state of neglect. A long table stood in the center, laden with a feast fit for a king, a stark contrast to the single pizza she'd delivered. "Join me, child," the figure rasped, gesturing to an empty chair. "You've earned a place at my table." Raina's heart hammered in her chest. She knew then that she'd made a terrible mistake. The figure wasn't human. Its eyes, glowing embers in the flickering candlelight, held an ancient hunger that sent chills down her spine. With a desperate lunge, Raina turned to flee, but the figure was faster. Long skeletal fingers clamped onto her shoulder, their touch like ice. She screamed, a primal sound ripped from the depths of her terror. The last thing she saw before the darkness claimed her was the monstrous figure leaning in, its raspy voice a chilling whisper. "Thank you for the delivery, child. Now you become part of the feast." The mansion on Willow Creek remained silent, a monument to forgotten horrors. But the legend of the phantom delivery driver forever trapped within its decaying walls, echoed as a chilling reminder of the perils that awaited those who ventured where they shouldn't, lured by the promise of easy money and oblivious to the darkness that lurked beneath the surface. Rain lashed against Alex's windshield, blurring the neon glow of the city into a smeared watercolor painting. His phone buzzed with a new delivery order. The Gloaming Grove Apartments, an address he didn't recognize. The hefty tip, however, was impossible to ignore. He punched in the address, the GPS chirping an unfamiliar route that led deeper into the city's decaying underbelly. The Gloaming Grove, when he finally found it, was a hulking behemoth of rusting fire escapes and cracked concrete. Shadows seemed to writhe in the flickering streetlights, and an oppressive silence hung heavy in the air. The delivery instructions specified Apartment 13, back door. Apartment 13, Alex knew, was an unlucky number in many cultures, but the knowing guilt of mounting bills overpowered his superstition. He parked in a deserted alley, the stench of overflowing dumpsters assaulting his nostrils. The back door of the building creaked open on rusty hinges, revealing a dark, cavernous hallway. His flashlight sputtered, casting grotesque shadows that danced on the peeling walls. Reaching Apartment 13, he knocked tentatively. Silence. He knocked again, harder this time, calling out, "Delivery for Ms. Crow." A muffled voice, weak and raspy, drifted from within. "Leave it at the door, please." Alex hesitated, the voice sending chills down his spine. He carefully placed the steaming bag of Thai curry on the rickety floorboard and turned to leave. But as he did, the door creaked open a sliver, revealing a single, skeletal hand reaching out, its long, yellowed nails tapping impatiently. Terror surged through Alex. This wasn't human. He stumbled back, his foot catching on a loose floorboard. He sprawled to the ground, his flashlight clattering away, plunging him into darkness. A cold, skeletal hand clamped onto his arm, its grip like a vice. He screamed, a raw, primal sound that echoed through the desolate hallway. Finally, the raspy voice hissed, closer this time. "Fresh meat for the ritual." Alex thrashed, adrenaline flooding his system. He managed to wrench his arm free, scrambling to his feet in the darkness. He stumbled blindly, bumping into walls and tripping over debris. The raspy voice cackled behind him, a chilling symphony of madness. He felt a cold wind against his cheek as he burst out of the back door. He didn't dare look back, just ran, his lungs burning, his legs screaming in protest. He sprinted through the deserted alley, the sounds of the approaching monstrosity echoing in his ears. Finally, he burst out onto the rain-slicked street, collapsing in a heap on the sidewalk. He gasped for breath, his heart hammering in his chest. He dared to look back. The Gloaming Grove loomed in the distance, shrouded in darkness. He saw nothing, heard nothing. But he knew. The monstrosity was still out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for its next unsuspecting victim. The next morning, shaken but alive, Alex reported the incident to the police. Of course, they found nothing unusual at the Gloaming Grove. Apartment 13 was empty, the building slated for demolition. But Alex knew the truth. He had glimpsed the darkness that festered beneath the city's surface, a horrifying secret hidden within a decaying apartment building. He vowed never to take another late-night delivery, forever haunted by the chilling encounter with the skeletal hand and the raspy voice that whispered of rituals and fresh meat. The memory of the Gloaming Grove became a constant reminder. Some deliveries come with a price too terrible to pay. Rain lashed against the windshield of Sarah's beat-up delivery van, blurring the neon glow of the city into a distorted kaleidoscope. Her phone buzzed with a new delivery request. The address cryptic: Whispering Pines Campground, Site 13. Ask for Old Man Willow. A shiver danced down her spine. Whispering Pines was notorious for its isolation and unsettling reputation. But the tip, a ludicrous sum, was enough to silence her better judgment. Tonight, ramen was off the menu. Following the GPS, Sarah navigated a labyrinth of winding dirt roads, the headlights cutting through the oppressive darkness. The air hung heavy with the smell of damp earth and decaying leaves. Finally, the GPS sputtered and died, leaving her stranded in a desolate clearing dotted with skeletal trees and abandoned campsites. Site 13 was a dilapidated trailer, its windows boarded shut, the paint peeling like sunburnt skin. A lone crow perched on the rusty awning, its beady black eyes gleaming like malevolent jewels. Sarah checked the address. This was it. Taking a deep breath, she grabbed the insulated food bag, its warmth a beacon against the chilling night. As she approached the trailer, a low growl rumbled from within, sending a jolt of adrenaline through her. The crow called harshly, echoing through the desolate campsite. "Old Man Willow," she called out, her voice trembling slightly. "Delivery for you." The rusted door creaked open a sliver, revealing an interior shrouded in darkness. A gnarled hand, its skin like wrinkled leather, emerged from the shadows, clutching a crumpled wad of cash. Finally, a raspy voice rasped, devoid of warmth, "Leave it on the counter." Sarah hesitated, the unsettling ambience prickling her skin, but the hand tightened its grip on the cash, and a glint of something sharp flashed in the dim light. She nervously deposited the food bag on the counter and retreated back towards her van. Just as she reached the driver's door, a blood-curdling shriek tore through the night. The crow took flight, circling the trailer with a frenzy of caws. Sarah froze, her heart hammering in her chest. Without a second thought, she flung herself into the van and slammed the door shut. The tires squealed as she peeled away from the campsite, the horrifying scream echoing in her ears. In the rearview mirror, she saw a dark figure emerge from the trailer, its silhouette vaguely monstrous against the pale moonlight. Another guttural shriek pierced the night, a sound that seemed to claw at her sanity. Back at the pizza joint, Sarah, shaken but alive, recounted the encounter to her skeptical manager, Tony. He scoffed, dismissing it as a case of overactive imagination and a grumpy hermit. "Probably just scared you with his pet raccoon," he chuckled, slapping her on the back. Fueled by a mix of fear and frustration, Sarah decided to investigate. The next morning, she drove back to Whispering Pines, armed with a flashlight and a gnawing sense of dread. Site 13 looked even more unsettling in the daylight. The crow sat on the awning, its beady eyes boring into Sarah. With a deep breath, Sarah approached the trailer, the stench of decay growing stronger with each step. Hesitantly, she pushed open the creaky door. The air inside was thick with dust and the cloying sweetness of rotting fruit. In the dim light, she saw a single bare bulb hanging precariously from the ceiling, illuminating a cluttered room. On a rickety table sat the untouched food bag, but it was the figure slumped behind the table that sent a wave of icy dread through Sarah. Old Man Willow, his face contorted in a silent scream, lay dead, his bony hand clutching a single, long black feather. Panic surged through Sarah. She stumbled back, knocking over a shelf of dusty jars filled with an oily black liquid. The jars shattered, the liquid spreading across the floor in an inky stain. Suddenly, the air grew thick with a buzzing sound. From the darkness around her, countless black shapes emerged, their wings shimmering in the dim light. Crows. Hundreds of them, their eyes reflecting an unnatural hunger. Sarah screamed, a primal sound ripped from her throat. She turned to flee, but the crows were faster. They descended upon her in a flurry of black feathers and sharp beaks. The last thing Sarah saw before the darkness consumed her was a swirling vortex of black wings, a final flash of malevolent crow eyes gleaming with a hunger older than time itself. Whispering Pine's campground remained silent, its secrets buried beneath the decaying leaves and the watchful eyes of countless crows. The neon glow of the Last Slice pizza parlor cast an uninviting red hue on Ben's face as he scanned the delivery order. Grimwood Manor, it read, followed by a chilling note. Beware of the Bluetowns. Ben, a jaded delivery driver with a healthy dose of skepticism, scoffed. Bluetowns guarding a spooky mansion. Probably just another overzealous homeowner with a taste for theatrics. Grimwood Manor, nestled deep within the forgotten suburbs, loomed like a skeletal giant against the stormy night sky. Its windows, black voids reflecting the distorted moonlight, seemed to leer down at Ben. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the mournful howl of the wind through the skeletal branches of the overgrown trees. Parking at a safe distance, Ben armed himself with a can of pepper spray, a token gesture against mythical beasts, but a comfort nonetheless. He approached the imposing front door, the rusty iron gate groaning like a tortured soul. Just as he raised his hand to knock, a guttural growl erupted from within the mansion. Ben's heart hammered in his chest. Maybe the Bloodhounds weren't just a joke after all. He considered leaving the pizza on the porch and fleeing, but the hefty tip, enough to pay his rent, fueled his resolve. With a deep breath, he pounded on the oak door. The sound echoed through the silent house, followed by an unsettling silence. He knocked again, louder this time. A faint creak and the slow grinding of rusty hinges filled the air. The door cracked open a sliver, revealing a sliver of darkness within. A tall, gaunt figure emerged, its face shrouded in shadow. Its voice, raspy and ancient, sent shivers down Ben's spine. The delivery, finally. Ben stammered, "Yes, sir. One large pepperoni pizza with extra cheese." The figure chuckled, a sound like gravel crunching underfoot. "Come in, child. You look famished." Against his better judgment, curiosity piqued by the strange encounter, Ben stepped inside. The air inside the mansion was thick with the smell of dust and decay. A single flickering candle cast grotesque shadows that danced on the peeling wallpaper. The figure led him through a labyrinth of darkened rooms, each colder and more oppressive than the last. Finally, they reached a grand hall, its faded grandeur a stark contrast to its current state of neglect. A long table stood in the center, laden with a feast fit for a king, a stark contrast to the single pizza he'd delivered. Candelabras flickered to life, casting an eerie glow on the faces of the figures seated at the table. They weren't human. Their eyes glowed with an unnatural hunger, their faces twisted into grotesque parodies of humanity. Ben's blood ran cold. These were the Bloodhounds, but not the canine kind he'd envisioned. The figure who had led him in rasped, "Welcome, young one. Join us for the feast. You've become the main course." Terror flooded Ben's mind. He lunged for the pepper spray, aiming at the closest creature. A burst of pepper hit its face, eliciting a shriek of pain and fury. But there were too many, their hunger a palpable force in the air. With a desperate scream, Ben turned and fled. He sprinted through the mansion, adrenaline fueling his escape. The Bloodhounds were close behind, their inhuman growls echoing through the halls. He burst through the front door, the cold night air a welcome shock. He scrambled into his car, slamming the door shut just as a monstrous hand clawed at the window. He slammed the car into reverse, tires squealing on the gravel driveway as he sped away. In the rearview mirror, Grimwood Manor stood silent, a monument to forgotten horrors. Ben didn't dare look back. The chilling images of the bloodhounds burned into his memory. He had escaped with his life, but the experience left him forever changed. The next time a delivery came up with a cryptic address and a hefty tip, Ben knew better than to answer the call. Some things were more valuable than money, and sometimes the price of a pizza was simply too high. The neon glow of the Cyber Chow sign cast an artificial cheer on the rain-slicked street. Maya, a delivery veteran with a nose for trouble and a stomach of steel, tapped her phone impatiently. The delivery request was bizarre. A single protein shake to a secluded cabin at the dead end of Highling Ridge Road. The hefty tip, however, was a siren song, drowning out the voice of caution. Following the GPS, Maya's car navigated a treacherous road snaking through a dense, primeval forest. The sky, an angry bruise above, threatened to burst open at any moment. Reaching the dead end, she found a rickety wooden sign scrawled with Hermitage in faded paint. A single, flickering light flickered in the distance, a beacon in the oppressive darkness. Parking at a safe distance, Maya grabbed the protein shake, a fluorescent pink monstrosity that defied logic. Her phone had died long ago, leaving her isolated and strangely vulnerable. As she approached the cabin, a shiver ran down her spine. The air crackled with a static energy, and the forest seemed to hold its breath. A gnarled oak door creaked open before she could even knock. A figure stood silhouetted in the doorway, shrouded in shadow. Its voice, a distorted rasp, sent a wave of unease through Maya. The delivery, at last. "Here you go," Maya said, her voice surprisingly steady. "One protein shake. Anything else I can help you with?" The figure stepped into the faint light, revealing a gaunt, emaciated figure with skin stretched taut over bones. Its eyes, however, glowed with an unnatural luminescence, pinning Maya where she stood. "Help!" It rasped, the word dripping with a mockery of its meaning. "No, child. You've come to provide sustenance." Fear tightened its icy grip on Maya's heart. Providing sustenance. To this thing. Before she could react, a surge of energy crackled from the figure's outstretched hand. The protein shake container levitated from Maya's grasp, the liquid swirling ominously within. "Not for me, child," the figure rasped, gesturing deeper into the cabin. "For the entity." Tentatively, Maya peered inside. The interior was shrouded in darkness, save for a single pulsating orb of pure energy hovering in the center. It throbbed with a malevolent light, draining the life from the air around it. "This entity," Maya whispered, her voice barely audible. "A fragment," the figure rasped, its voice filled with a chilling reverence. "A fragment of a being far beyond your comprehension. It feeds, and it grows stronger." The gravity of the situation slammed into Maya. She wasn't delivering a mere protein shake. She was unwittingly fueling a cosmic horror. A primal fear battled with her survival instinct. With a burst of adrenaline, Maya lunged for the levitating container. It pulsed with resistance, but desperation fueled her strength. She managed to snatch it back, the cold liquid sloshing over her hand. The figure screeched, a sound that ripped through the silence like a banshee's wail. The energy orb pulsed with renewed intensity, its light casting grotesque shadows on the cabin walls. "You dare defy the entity," The figure shrieked, its voice warped with rage. Maya didn't hesitate. She flung the protein shake at the pulsating orb. The liquid splattered against its surface, sizzling and smoking. A deafening shriek tore through the air as the orb imploded in a blinding flash of light. Pain seared Maya's eyes as she squeezed them shut. A wave of energy slammed her against the cabin wall, the air crackling around her. When she opened her eyes, she was alone. The figure and the cabin were gone, vanished without a trace. Only the charred remains of the protein shake container lay smoking on the damp earth, a chilling reminder of the horror she'd narrowly escaped. Maya stumbled back to her car, her body trembling. The encounter left her forever changed. The world, she realized, was not as simple as deliveries and tips. There were unseen forces at play, entities lurking in the shadows, and sometimes the price of convenience was far too high. From that day on, Maya remained a delivery driver, but her deliveries became more than just food and packages. They became a testament to her courage, a reminder of the night she faced a cosmic horror and lived to tell the tale. The rusted mailbox at the end of the overgrown driveway proclaimed, in faded lettering, Blackwood Manor. Rain lashed against Ethan's windshield, blurring the imposing silhouette of the Victorian mansion that loomed ahead. The delivery instructions were cryptic. Leaf package on back porch. Beware of the groundskeeper. Ethan, a seasoned delivery driver with a healthy dose of skepticism, scoffed. Probably a grubby old man with a penchant for theatrics. He muttered. The GPS sputtered to life, leading him down a narrow, treacherous path choked with weeds and debris. The air hung heavy with the smell of damp earth and decay. Parking at a safe distance from the looming structure, Ethan hefted the hefty package, an ornately carved wooden box addressed simply to Mr. Blackwood. He navigated a labyrinth of overgrown foliage, the silence broken only by the rhythmic drumming of rain on the roof. Reaching the back porch, a rickety wooden structure sagging under its own weight, Ethan placed the package and turned to leave. Suddenly, a guttural growl erupted from the shadows, sending a jolt of adrenaline through him. He spun around, his heart hammering in his chest. Emerging from the gloom was a hulking figure, its silhouette vaguely humanoid, shrouded in a tattered cloak. Who dares disturb the master? It rasped, its voice a gravelly whisper. Despite his fear, Ethan managed to stammer, "Delivery for Mr. Blackwood. Sign here, please." The figure chuckled, a sound like dry leaves rustling in a crypt. "Mr. Blackwood doesn't receive deliveries. And what you brought?" It extended a long claw-like finger towards the package. "Well, that changes things." Before Ethan could react, the figure lunged. He scrambled back, tripping over a loose floorboard, landing hard on the rain-slicked porch. The figure loomed over him, its eyes glowing like embers in the darkness. Fear fueled Ethan's instincts. He lunged for the pepper spray strapped to his belt, aiming a burst at the creature's face. A shriek of pain and fury ripped through the night air. The figure stumbled back, its eyes watering, momentarily incapacitated. Seizing his chance, Ethan scrambled to his feet and bolted. He sprinted through the overgrown garden, the creature's enraged roar echoing behind him. Thorns ripped at his clothes, branches clawed at his face, but he didn't dare look back. He finally burst out of the overgrown foliage, collapsing near his car, gasping for breath. He glanced back at the mansion, a dark and ominous silhouette against the storm-racked sky. The creature was nowhere to be seen. Back at the pizza parlor, shaken but alive, Ethan recounted the encounter to his skeptical manager, Tony. Tony scoffed, dismissing it as a case of overactive imagination and a stray raccoon. Probably just scared you with his trash can, he chuckled. Furious and shaken, Ethan decided to investigate. The next morning, armed with a flashlight and a gnawing sense of dread, he returned to Blackwood Manor. The back porch was deserted, the ornately carved box still resting innocuously. Hesitantly, Ethan approached the box. He knelt down, his fingers brushing against the smooth, cold wood. A morbid curiosity gnawed at him. What secrets did it contain? Just as he reached to open it, a cold, bony hand clamped onto his shoulder. He froze, a scream trapped in his throat. Slowly, he turned his head. The figure from the previous night stood behind him, its eyes glowing with an unholy light. "You shouldn't have come back," it rasped, its voice dripping with malice. Ethan's heart hammered in his chest. He knew then that he had made a terrible mistake. The creature, fueled by the contents of the box, was no longer a groundskeeper. It was something far more monstrous. Ethan vanished that day. The ornately carved box disappeared with him. Blackwood Manor remained silent, a monument to forgotten horrors. But the legend of the delivery driver, who dared to disturb the master, became a chilling reminder. Some deliveries are best left unopened, and some secrets are better left buried in the shadows. The neon glow of the Grub Grub sign cast a sickly yellow pallor on Clara's face as she scanned the delivery order. Whispering Pines Campground, Site 13, it read, followed by a chillingly specific note. Second knock. Don't open your eyes. Clara, a delivery driver with a healthy dose of sass and a chronic case of empty pockets, shrugged. Weird, but a tip's a tip, she muttered, tossing the crumpled receipt into the passenger seat. Whispering Pines, nestled deep in the forgotten woods, was a desolate place. The skeletal remains of abandoned campers littered the grounds, their peeling paint mirroring the unsettling silence that hung heavy in the air. Following the cryptic instructions, Clara parked her beat-up van a safe distance from Site 13, a dilapidated trailer that looked like it had seen better days, or perhaps worse nights. Taking a deep breath, Clara grabbed the steaming container of chili and approached the trailer door. Hesitantly, she rapped once, the sound echoing through the stillness. Silence. Following the instructions, she knocked again. A voice creaked from within, raspy and ancient, like wind whistling through a graveyard. "Leave it on the porch, child, and don't you dare peek." Clara's curiosity warred with her natural cautiousness. Who wouldn't be curious about a delivery with such bizarre instructions? But the voice's chilling tone sent shivers down her spine. With a sigh, she placed the chili on the rickety wooden porch and turned to leave. Just as she reached her van, a blood-curdling shriek tore through the night, a sound that seemed to claw at her sanity. Her heart hammered against her ribs, urging her to flee. With a morbid fascination rooted her to the spot. Peeking through the cracked window of the trailer, she saw a sight that would forever scar her memory. An old woman, her face contorted in a silent scream, sat hunched over a steaming bowl of chili. But it wasn't the woman that chilled Clara to the bone. It was what swarmed around her, a vortex of darkness, a swirling mass of inky tendrils emanating from the bowl, greedily attaching themselves to the woman's skin. Terror surged through Clara. She didn't know what those things were, but their hunger was palpable. With a strangled cry, she scrambled into her van and slammed the door shut. She slammed the van into gear, tires squealing as she peeled away from the campsite. The horrifying image of the shrieking woman and the swirling darkness burned into her mind. Back at the Grub Grub, shaken but alive, Clara recounted the encounter to her incredulous manager, Phil. Phil, a man whose skepticism bordered on cynicism, scoffed. Probably just had a bad case of heartburn. He chuckled, slapping her on the back. Fueled by a mix of fear and frustration, Clara decided to investigate. The next morning, armed with a flashlight and a desperate need for answers, she returned to Whispering Pines. Site 13 looked even more unsettling in the daylight. The remnants of the chili, a dark, oily stain on the porch floor, served as a chilling reminder of the previous night's events. Hesitantly, Clara approached the trailer, the stench of decay filling the air. Pushing open the creaky door, she braced herself for another horrifying scene. But the trailer was empty. The only furniture was a single overturned table, a testament to the struggle of the night before. On the counter, however, lay an old leather-bound book. Curiosity overcoming her fear, Clara picked it up. The book was filled with cryptic symbols and incantations, its pages smelling of ancient magic and forgotten lore. One passage, underlined in what looked like blood, jumped out at her. An offering of spice unlocks the gate. Beware the hunger that awaits. Understanding dawned on Clara. The chili wasn't meant for the old woman. It was a key, a portal to something monstrous, and she, unwittingly, had delivered it. Panic surged through her. She slammed the book shut and fled the trailer, the horrifying image of the swirling darkness replaying on a loop in her mind. She knew then that her life was irrevocably changed. Whispering Pines might seem a desolate place, but the true horror lay dormant, waiting to be unleashed by another unsuspecting delivery driver, another misplaced delivery. Rain lashed against Alex's windshield, blurring the neon glow of the city into a watercolor nightmare. His phone buzzed, a new delivery request disrupting the monotony of a Tuesday night. The address, the Evermore Hotel, room 404, sent a shiver down his spine. The Evermore was a dilapidated relic, shrouded in rumors of disappearances and hauntings. Tourists avoided it, locals whispered about it, and delivery drivers like Alex steered clear. Yet the exorbitant tip attached to the order, enough to pay his rent twice over, proved too tempting to ignore. Pulling up to the decaying facade, a sense of dread settled upon Alex. The flickering marquee proclaimed vacancy, a cruel joke considering the hotel's reputation. The lobby was a cavernous space, shrouded in darkness and the faint scent of mildew. Ignoring the gnawing unease in his gut, Alex navigated the maze of cobweb-draped hallways, the silence broken only by the rhythmic tapping of his shoes. Reaching room 404, the wood grain was warped and peeling like diseased skin. A handwritten note on the door read, "Leave it on the threshold. Do not disturb." Alex felt a prickle of unease, but the hefty tip beckoned. He set down the steaming box of pad thai, a pang of regret twisting in his stomach. As he turned to leave, a blood-curdling scream pierced the silence, echoing down the desolate hallway. His heart hammered in his chest. Curiosity, morbid and irresistible, battled with his flight instinct. He peeked through the keyhole. The room beyond was bathed in an eerie green light, emanating from within the open box of pad thai. A figure, gaunt and skeletal, writhed on the threadbare carpet, tendrils of green mist erupting from the noodles and burrowing into its flesh. The figure's agonized scream rose to a crescendo before abruptly cutting off. Silence descended, heavy and oppressive. Terror flooded Alex's veins. He stumbled back, colliding with a rickety table, sending a vase crashing to the floor. The sound shattered the stillness, and from within the room, a raspy voice hissed, "Foolish mortal, you've released him." The door creaked open a sliver, revealing a glimpse of the figure inside. It was no longer human, its body grotesquely contorted, its eyes glowing with an unnatural emerald light. It lunged at the door, a monstrous parody of hunger. Panic surged through Alex. He sprinted down the hallway, his lungs burning, the monstrous figure's inhuman shrieks echoing behind him. He burst through the lobby doors, the cool night air a welcome shock. He didn't stop running until he was a safe distance away, his chest heaving, adrenaline coursing through his veins. Back at the delivery joint, he recounted his experience to his skeptical boss, a gruff man named Marco. Marco, unsurprisingly, dismissed the story as an overactive imagination fueled by too many horror movies. But Alex knew what he'd seen. The image of the monstrous figure and the green mist was etched into his memory. He also knew the truth about the exorbitant tips, a trap to lure unsuspecting souls to unleash the horrors within the Evermore. Driven by a mix of fear and determination, Alex decided to warn others. He posted his experience online, complete with a blurry picture of the green mist emanating from the pad thai box. To his surprise, his story resonated. Delivery drivers shared similar experiences, whispers of the Evermore's dark secrets spreading through the online community. One evening, a group of delivery drivers, armed with flashlights and a healthy dose of skepticism, decided to investigate the Evermore. They barged into room 404, only to find it empty, the stench of decay lingering in the air. The box of pad thai was gone, replaced by a single, withered orchid. The Evermore Hotel remained closed, a decaying monument to a chilling secret. Delivery drivers, forever wary of exorbitant tips and cryptic addresses, dubbed it the Gates Hotel, a grim reminder of the night they almost unleashed a horror fueled by a simple meal. The legend of the Evermore served as a cautionary tale, a whisper in the wind urging them to be wary of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface, even in the most seemingly ordinary of deliveries. The rusty mailbox sported a faded hand-painted sign, "The Howling Mineshaft." Sarah, a delivery driver with a penchant for ignoring her gut feeling, squinted at the GPS. The delivery request, a single box of matches, seemed innocuous enough. The hefty tip, however, was a siren song drowning out the voice of caution. Following the winding dirt road, the once lush landscape morphed into a desolate wasteland. The air hung heavy with an unnatural silence, broken only by the mournful cry of a loon crow. Finally, the GPS sputtered to a halt, a dilapidated shack, marking the end of the road. Behind it, a gaping pit, shrouded in perpetual twilight, marked the entrance to the abandoned hiding mineshaft. Parking at a safe distance, Sarah grabbed the small box of matches, a shiver running down her spine. The instructions on the slip were cryptic. "Leave at the mouth of the mineshaft. Do not enter." Hesitantly, she approached the yawning chasm, the shadows within seeming to writhe with unseen movement. Just as she placed the box on a crumbling rock, a voice, a guttural rasp that sent chills down her spine, echoed from the depths. "Finally, the offering has arrived." Sarah spun around, heart hammering against her ribs, but saw nothing but the oppressive darkness of the mineshaft. "Who's there?" she stammered, her voice barely a whisper. "A prisoner of time," the voice replied, closer this time, tinged with a desperate hunger. "One who can be freed by the spark of fire." Terror flooded Sarah's mind. They weren't delivering matches. They were delivering a key to something ancient and malevolent. Suddenly, the shack creaked open, revealing a figure cloaked in shadow. Its eyes, glowing embers in the gloom, fixed on Sarah. "You will light the way," it rasped, its skeletal hand reaching out in a claw-like gesture. Panic surged through Sarah. She stumbled back, her foot catching on a loose rock. She tumbled backwards, the box of matches flying through the air. They landed at the edge of the mineshaft, the wooden box splintering open on impact. The figure lunged forward, a monstrous shriek ripping from its throat. But it was too late. A single match, propelled by the fall, landed in the dry tinder of spilled matches. A spark ignited, then a flame, catching on the dry wood scattered around the mineshaft entrance. The figure froze, a look of pure terror contorting its shadowed face. As the fire roared to life, casting dancing shadows on the surrounding rocks, the figure recoiled. It let out a blood-curdling scream, a sound that seemed to tear at the fabric of reality itself. Then, with a final ear-splitting shriek, the figure vanished, consumed by the flames. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the crackling fire. Sarah scrambled back, fear turning her legs to jelly. She watched, mesmerized, as the fire danced and flickered, seemingly feeding on something unseen within the mineshaft. As the flames grew in intensity, a wave of oppressive heat rolled towards her. Panic finally broke through her paralysis. She sprinted back to her car, throwing it into gear and peeling away from the scene. In the rearview mirror, the fire raged, a beacon against the encroaching darkness. The next morning, the news reported a mysterious fire at the abandoned Harling mineshaft. The cause remained undetermined. Sarah, haunted by the experience, quit her delivery job. The image of the monstrous figure and the hungry darkness within the mineshaft remained a chilling reminder of the night she became a pawn in a game far older and more sinister than a simple delivery. The Harling mineshaft remained closed, a charred monument to a forgotten horror. Delivery drivers, forever wary of cryptic deliveries and unexpected detours, whispered stories of the burning pit, a cautionary tale of the unseen dangers that lurked beneath the surface, waiting to be unleashed by a misplaced package. Rain lashed against Leo's windshield, blurring the neon glow of the city into a watercolor nightmare. His phone buzzed, a new delivery request disrupting the monotony of a Friday night. The address, the Blackwood Conservatory, Greenhouse 9, sent a shiver down his spine. The Blackwood Conservatory was renowned for its rare and exotic flora, but rumors swirled about its founder, Professor Blackwood, and his unorthodox experiments. Leo, a botany enthusiast with a healthy dose of skepticism, scoffed. "Just a bunch of plant snobs and their fancy flowers," she muttered. Pulling up to the imposing iron gates of the conservatory, their ornate design obscured by overgrown vines, Leo felt a prickle of unease. The air hung heavy with the smell of damp earth and something cloying, almost metallic. Following the cryptic instructions, he navigated the labyrinthine pathways, the towering glasshouses casting eerie shadows under the stormy sky. Reaching Greenhouse 9, a Victorian structure with a lead-pane dome, Leo felt a sudden drop in temperature. A handwritten note stuck to the door read, "Package for Umbra. Handle with care." A shiver ran down his spine. Umbra wasn't on the list of usual suspects at the conservatory. Hesitantly, Leo pushed open the creaky door. A thick, humid fog hung in the air, obscuring the rows of strange and unsettling plants. A low, guttural growling sound echoed from somewhere within. Swallowing his fear, Leo navigated the maze of greenery, the metallic scent growing stronger with every step. Finally, he spotted it. A dark, pulsating mass nestled amidst mutated ferns. It resembled a giant, pulsating flower bud, its surface glistening with an oily sheen. A single note protruded from its stem, "Feed Umbra." Disgust and a primal fear warred within Leo. This wasn't a plant, not in any natural sense. But the delivery instructions were clear. He reached into his bag, retrieved a package of the high-protein supplements specified in the note, and cautiously placed them near the pulsating bud. As the supplements touched the oily surface, the bud rippled and pulsed with renewed intensity. A wave of nausea washed over Leo as the metallic scent filled the air. Then, with a sickening crack, the bud tore open, revealing a creature unlike anything he'd ever seen. It was vaguely humanoid, its skin a mottled green, its eyes glowing like embers. Vicious-looking thorns sprouted from its back, and its voice, a rasping growl, echoed through the greenhouse. More, it demanded, its hunger palpable. Panic flooded Leo's veins. He'd delivered food to a monster. He stumbled back, tripping over a potted plant, sending it crashing to the floor. The creature whipped its head towards the sound, its predatory gaze locking onto Leo. "Food is not supposed to move," it hissed, its voice dripping with malice. Leo scrambled to his feet and bolted. He sprinted through the greenhouse, crashing through hanging vines and knocking over flower pots in his desperate escape. The creature lumbered after him, its guttural growls filling the air. Finally, bursting through the greenhouse doors, Leo stumbled into the pouring rain. He didn't stop running until he was a safe distance away, his chest heaving, adrenaline coursing through his veins. Back at the pizza joint, shaken but alive, Leo recounted his experience to his skeptical boss, Tony. Tony, a man whose pragmatism bordered on cynicism, scoffed. Probably a particularly ugly mutant orchid with a taste for protein shakes. He chuckled. Leo knew better. The image of the monstrous creature and the metallic scent of its hunger remained etched into his memory. He also knew he wouldn't be delivering to the Blackwood Conservatory ever again. News of the greenhouse incident spread like wildfire among the delivery community. The rumors, embellished and exaggerated, painted a chilling picture of a monstrous plant come to life. The Blackwood Conservatory remained shrouded in secrecy, its greenhouses silent testaments to the dark experiments conducted within. Delivery drivers, forever wary of deliveries to Greenhouse 9 and cryptic instructions, dubbed it the Monster House, a cautionary tale of the dangers of tampering with nature and the horrifying consequences of delivering the wrong package to the wrong recipient. The neon glow of the Rusty Wrench diner cast a greasy sheen on the rain-slick street. Maya, a delivery driver with a nose for trouble and a stomach of iron, slammed a steaming burrito onto the counter. "One super special, extra spicy," she announced, her voice dripping with sarcasm. The customer, a hooded figure shrouded in shadow, simply grunted and shoved a crumpled wad of cash into her hand. The exorbitant tip, enough to cover a speeding ticket and a decent meal, drowned out the voice of caution whispering in Maya's head. The delivery address, Whispering Glade Cemetery, Mausoleum 13, sent shivers down her spine, but the prospect of a decent night's sleep trumped her unease. Following the GPS, Maya's car navigated a treacherous road snaking through a dense, ancient forest. The sky, a bruised canvas of storm clouds, threatened to burst open at any moment. Reaching the cemetery gates, rusty and overgrown with ivy, Maya felt a wave of oppressive silence slam into her. The air hung heavy with the scent of damp earth and decay. Parking at a respectful distance, she grabbed the burrito, its aroma assaulting her senses, a pungent mix of spices and something vaguely metallic. Hesitantly, she approached Mausoleum 13, a towering structure of crumbling black marble. A chill wind whipped past her, carrying a faint whisper, a voice that seemed to slither through the darkness. Finally, it rasped, sending goosebumps erupting across her skin. Ignoring the primal fear clawing at her, Maya placed the burrito on the mausoleum steps and turned to leave. Suddenly, a booming voice, filled with rage and hunger, echoed from within the mausoleum. "You dare bring such meager sustenance?" The ground trembled, and the heavy mausoleum doors creaked open, revealing a figure cloaked in darkness. Two glowing red eyes, burning embers in the gloom, fixed on Maya. "I crave more," the voice boomed, a monstrous hunger oozing from every word. Terror flooded Maya's veins. This wasn't a delivery gone wrong. This was something far more sinister. Adrenaline surged through her, fueling her next move. She grabbed a handful of gravel from the path and flung it at the glowing eyes. The figure screeched in pain, momentarily blinded. Seizing the opportunity, Maya sprinted towards her car, the creature's enraged roar echoing behind her. She slammed into the driver's seat, peeled away from the cemetery, and didn't stop driving until she was miles away. Back at the diner, shaken but safe, Maya recounted her experience to a skeptical Phil, the gruff owner. Phil, unsurprisingly, dismissed the story as a product of overactive imagination and too many horror movies. Fueled by a mix of fear and determination, Maya decided to investigate. The next morning, armed with a flashlight and a borrowed camera, she returned to Whispering Blade Cemetery. Mausoleum 13 stood silent and imposing in the morning light. Hesitantly, Maya approached the mausoleum, the stench of decay intensifying. Taking a deep breath, she aimed the flashlight through the open doors. The interior was shrouded in darkness, save for a single withered rose lying on the cold, marble floor. Suddenly, a flicker of movement in the corner of the camera's viewfinder caught her eye. Zooming in, Maya gasped in horror. Two glowing red eyes, filled with malice, stared back at her from the darkness. With a blood-curdling scream, Maya dropped the camera and fled. The image, however, was burned into her memory, a chilling reminder of the horror that lurked beneath the surface, waiting to be unleashed by an unsuspecting delivery driver. News of the mausoleum incident spread like wildfire among the delivery community. Whispers of a monstrous entity residing within the cemetery, feasting on the living, haunted their conversations. Whispering Blade Cemetery was officially closed to the public, becoming a local legend, a cautionary tale for delivery drivers, a reminder to be wary of cryptic addresses and deliveries shrouded in darkness. Maya, forever scarred by her encounter, quit her job. The world, she realized, was not as simple as deliveries and tips. There were unseen forces at play, entities lurking in the shadows, and sometimes the price of convenience was far too high. The incessant drizzle blurred the neon glow of Cyberchow into a hazy mess. Alex, a delivery driver with a healthy dose of skepticism and a chronic case of empty pockets, sighed as he read the delivery details. Wisteria Lane, abandoned asylum, gatehouse. A shiver ran down his spine. Wisteria Lane was notorious for its abandoned asylum, a hulking Victorian monstrosity shrouded in rumours of torture and madness. The hefty tip attached to the order, however, whispered sweet nothings to his ever-dwindling bank account. Following the GPS, Alex's car navigated a desolate road shrouded in overgrown trees. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the rhythmic drumming of rain on the roof. Reaching the asylum gates, rusted and adorned with menacing gargoyles, Alex felt a primal unease crawl up his spine. A single, flickering bulb cast an eerie glow on the peeling paint and shattered windows of the asylum. Following the cryptic instructions, leave package on porch, ring bell twice, do not enter, Alex approached the gatehouse a smaller dilapidated structure adjacent to the main building. A single dusty bell hung limply by the door. He hefted the hefty package, a medical-grade thermal scanner, a strange delivery for an abandoned building. Hesitantly, he rang the bell twice. The sound echoed through the desolate grounds, sending a flock of crows cawing into the stormy sky. Silence followed, thick and suffocating. He rang the bell again, this time with more urgency. A low groan emanated from within the gatehouse, sending chills down Alex's spine. The door creaked open a sliver, revealing a sliver of darkness within. A voice, raspy and ancient, rasped, "Leave it and go." Alex's curiosity warred with his growing fear. Who could possibly be living in this abandoned place? But the voice's chilling tone sent him scrambling back. He placed the package on the weather-beaten porch and turned to flee. Just as he reached his car, a blood-curdling scream pierced the night. It was a sound so raw, so filled with anguish, that it clawed at his sanity. Panic flooded his veins, but a morbid fascination rooted him to the spot. Peeking through the cracked window of the gatehouse, Alex saw a sight that would forever scar his memory. A gaunt figure, its skin stretched taut over bones, writhed on the floor. Tendrils of shimmering heat, emanating from the thermal scanner, seared its flesh, leaving behind smoldering wounds. The figure screamed again, a sound that defied description. Terror surged through Alex. He didn't know what the thermal scanner was doing, but its effect was horrifying. With a strangled cry, he scrambled into his car and slammed the door shut. He slammed the car into gear, tires squealing as he peeled away from the asylum. The horrifying image of the writhing figure and the searing heat burned into his mind. Back at Cyberchow, shaken but alive, Alex recounted the encounter to his skeptical manager, a gruff man named Marco. Marco, unsurprisingly, dismissed the story as a case of overactive imagination and a bad burrito. Fueled by a mix of fear and determination, Alex decided to investigate. The next morning, armed with a flashlight and a borrowed EMF reader, a device used to detect electromagnetic fields, he returned to Wisteria Lane. The asylum loomed even more menacing in the daylight, its broken windows like vacant eyes staring into his soul. As he approached the gatehouse, the EMF reader crackled to life, emitting a disturbingly rapid pulse. Inside, the air hung heavy with the stench of decay and something metallic. Picking up the discarded thermal scanner, he noticed its casing was warped and faintly glowing. Suddenly, a disembodied voice echoed from within the asylum, a chorus of whispers that chilled Alex to the bone. "We are Legion. Join us." The whispers grew louder, more insistent, urging him to step inside. Panic clawed at his throat. He dropped the scanner and fled, the whispers pursuing him like hungry shadows. He didn't stop running until he was a safe distance away, his chest heaving, the chilling whispers still echoing in his mind. Wisteria Lane Asylum remained abandoned, a chilling monument to forgotten horrors. Delivery drivers, forever wary of deliveries to the gatehouse and cryptic instructions like "Do not enter," dubbed it the Whispering Asylum, a cautionary tale of the dangers of venturing into places best left undisturbed. The legend of the thermal scanner and its horrifying effects became a whispered secret, a reminder that some deliveries are best left unopened, and some secrets are better buried in the darkness.